If you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to surround yourself with people who are very ambitious and you have to be in the right ecosystem. And in India, that's clearly in Bangalore.
I think this program is designed for individuals who are not afraid to try, who are confident, who want to take a bet on themselves. These are individuals who will become founders at some point of time. They have that, what we call as the Kida. Let's say I want to build a new best-in-class IKEA for India. Then what is stopping you?
Your ability to sell, convince, inspire people is very, very important. And in a founder's journey where there is so much to be built, you have to inspire people with your vision. You spoke about the startup which has come out of Mesa. That is so inspiring to hear. If there are so many more startups which come out right from school, that would be an amazing place to be. So therefore, we are fully committed to making sure that Mesa becomes a big, big success.
Good to go? Hi everybody. Today we are joined by Mukul Arora from Elevation Capital. Mukul is the co-head of Elevation Capital in India. Elevation Capital, as we all know, is one of the largest and most active venture capitalist firms in India, investing in startups. Over time, they've invested in some of the biggest startups we know, like Urban Company, Swiggy, Paytm, and 200 more. Thank you, Mukul, for joining us today. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me, Ankit. Great to be here with you.
Over time, we have talked a lot about why you invested in Mesa, why you invest in education and some of these very large sectors. I think I wanted to pick your brain for one more minute and ask you again, what is your philosophy and Elevation's philosophy when it comes to investing in sectors like education?
So Ankit, let me actually talk about our philosophy when we invest in startups in general, and then I'll double click on education a little bit because both are related. So when we are investing in startups, what we are looking for is that if this company becomes successful, can it be a generational company? Can it lead to a world which will be very different versus a world when this startup did not exist? And I'll take example of one of our portfolio companies, Swiggy, which you mentioned, since they went IPO recently. If you look at Swiggy, it's just a 10-year-old company. We invested in their seed round a decade back. Today, millions of customers order on Swiggy and Instamart. And as consumers also, if you look at our lives today, we can't imagine living without these apps. Equally importantly, they've created livelihood for hundreds of thousands of delivery people. They've created business for hundreds of thousands of restaurants. So that's the kind of impact they've had. And that's what gives us excitement and energy when we are investing in startups. And now if I sort of zoom into education also, we have seen one whole wave of companies which were trying to go after scale, and that did not work. And our view as we look at education today is to say, even in education 10-15 years out, what would a generation defining company look like, which will make life of students, life of companies who hire them very, very different and much better than what it is today. And for that to happen, they have to be very sharply focused on outcomes. So that's been our approach. We've been looking at companies which are focusing on delivering real outcomes to students. We also understand that that journey will be very different, because if you have to deliver outcomes and not going after scale on day one, you have to be very methodical. It might be even a very slow journey to start with. Have fewer students, really commit to them, have a longer duration program. But we are quite confident that if we fast forward 8, 10, 15 years, that's the only way to build an institution in this space. So that's been our thesis as we have looked at the education space in India. So if we try and marry two things, one is education, and second, for us as VCs, our bread and butter is startup technology ecosystem. And what we are seeing today is India is at a very, very unique point where startup and tech ecosystem is hitting an inflection point. If I look at last 10-15 years, I've been in this industry, it's been a lot about building foundation for the startup ecosystem, whether we look at rails like payments, whether we look at identity, whether we look at now everyone connected on mobile phones, etc. Having said that, for us as a country, per capita income growth, GDP growth is going to really kick in over the next 10, 12, 15 years. And therefore, we feel that today, the opportunity to build a new business is like never before. Businesses are getting built much quicker and much faster than they've ever been. So we spoke about Swiggy and the scale they have built in 10 years. Even on a day-to-day basis, the deal flow that we are getting is multiplying every year. And not just in terms of quantity, but even the quality of ideas and teams that are coming to us. So we are at a very, very unique point where over the next 10, 15, 20 years, India will get completely reimagined by entrepreneurs and by technology. Now, as we sit in this unique point, there is also this realization that do we have the talent and skills needed for this revolution which is ahead of us, and there is clearly a gap. People are obviously learning by doing, but are there educational institutes who are preparing them for this world? There is a big gap there. So when we met, if you remember, this is what was for me a big aha moment, saying that with Mesa you are trying to do two things together. One, be very focused on impact versus saying, hey, we want to build a tech business and we want to chase scale from day one. And second, you wanted to go after this unique sort of inflection point we are at, that can we help young professionals, young students better prepared for this tech era and startup era. And that's what really struck a chord with us. And obviously for both you and Varun, with your backgrounds of having studied in top tier educational institutes and also having been in some of the best startups in the country, I also felt you had a very strong right to win in this space. So that was the reason we decided to partner. And yeah, can't thank my stars enough. So far, it's been a very, very exciting journey.
Actually, what you said, Mukul, sort of made me remember a couple of things, from 2-3 years ago. One, when we started Mesa, I think on day one, we were very inspired by how Stanford was built in US, right? So when Stanford started, it also started at a time where there was an inflection point in the US economy, where a lot of people were trying to build new businesses. Obviously, at that point, they were not AI businesses or tech businesses. They were more traditional businesses. But I think it started at that point. And I think their focus on creating a very hands-on education while also preparing young individuals and in fact encouraging them to start something is what actually led to the creation of Stanford that we know today. And Stanford had an amazing and a very powerful role to play in how the entire Silicon Valley ecosystem was created because of their approach, which we just talked about. So I think we also are very, very strong and firm believers in this inflection moment. And I think the last 10 years, if it excited all of us, the next 10 years is going to be mind-blowing. And I think it's changing, right? So I think we both started our journeys in startup ecosystem maybe at similar times. So I started my journey back in 2012 when I left my first job at BCG to start my first company. And at that point, I had to fight my parents to leave a very established job and start something. Starting up was not acceptable, and people didn't even realize back then what it was. I think you also started, I think you were at McKinsey before, and then you sort of moved towards the startup and VC ecosystem, started engaging with different startups. And I think two changes, right? I think which you also mentioned. One, this time when I left my job at Urban Company, nobody questioned me, right? Why are you leaving a great job and starting something which is very risky? I think people were excited about it.
Actually, I want to turn it back to you, given you asked me why we invested in Mesa. And when you were starting, you also had this very clear thought process, and I would also say contrarian thinking, to say we'll only focus on startup and tech ecosystem. Whereas obviously, at least if you look at the job market today, startup and tech ecosystem is the fastest growing, but not the largest part of it today. So how has that journey been for you last couple of years? What have been some of the learnings there?
I think it's a very interesting point, right? And as you said, it was not the most obvious choice 2 years ago. And in hindsight, it does look like as if it's the right choice. But I think our mission was always to enable and empower the Indian entrepreneurship ecosystem, right? So that was, I would say, the first part of it, which made us bullish. Second, I think we were also seeing the growth trajectory on which Indian startups were. And I think if you remember, Shark Tank started in India maybe 4 years ago. I think we are now airing the 4th season. And as soon as Shark Tank aired, I think COVID changed a lot of things, number one. I think a lot of people started getting exposed to startups. Then the Shark Tank came. Some IPOs also came in startups. I think a bunch of things. I think we had UPI wave. I think we had a Geo movement. A lot of things came together, I would say 2-3 years ago, in cementing this inflection point. And as soon as the first Shark Tank season came, I think everybody was talking about startups, right? Everybody was thinking about what's the revenue of my local milk shop, or what is the revenue of, let's say, Swiggy or Urban Company, right? Everybody got excited. It became acceptable. So we started seeing those signs, I would say, slightly sooner than others in hindsight. And since we were anyway excited about the ecosystem, I think we were willing to take that leap of faith. I think that's the first part of it. The second part of it is, I think, just from core business building principles, you have to remain very focused, right? If you are trying to become something to everybody, you end up becoming nothing to everybody, right? So you have to attach your horse to a wagon, so to speak, and really build something deep and valuable. And as we discussed earlier, you have to deliver outcomes, you have to deliver quality, and that is not possible without, I would say, great amount of focus. So, I mean, to give you a couple of examples, right? We were working backwards from how to make people successful in the startup ecosystem as founders or as operators or leaders. Now, the type of skills, mindsets required for somebody to be successful in those roles as founders or leaders in startups are very different from those required in legacy companies. So, if you were to try to mix the two, it would never work out. So, we had to actually imagine everything that we were doing from scratch, right? To be able to deliver those skills. It had to start from the overall focus, obviously, but it had to boil down to specifics like who do we admit? So, for example, our admission process is designed to only select individuals who are entrepreneurial in nature, who are excited about being a founder or in startups themselves, so that they are surrounded by a peer group which is not just smart and ambitious, but is also entrepreneurial. Then we had to really change what we teach, because it has to be focused on the skills, the tools, the concepts, and the businesses that are new age, that are startups. Then it changed who is going to teach it, because pure academicians or traditional educators don't have access to all of those tools and skills. So we had to bring in new age educators and facilitators and work with them closely to deliver great new content that we designed, which is relevant for startup skills. Pedagogies had to be reimagined, because you can't learn some of these new skills in old ways. So when you are learning digital marketing, you can't watch a video about it. You have to actually run a campaign with, let's say, 5,000 rupees and try to sell something. If you have to learn product management, you have to actually build a product. You can't just read about it. You can't listen about it. You have to do it hands-on. So a lot of pedagogical changes. Then the recruiters that we focused on were obviously startups. We had to build an in-house incubator to allow and help students to tinker with their ideas and to actually build some ideas. So I think this entire, I would say, this one decision to focus on startups fundamentally changed how we do things. And I think that focus and that obsession about delivering that outcome is helping us design everything in-house, very focused on that outcome. And I think that is the biggest learning. And in hindsight, if we were not focused, I don't think we would have been able to design and deliver such high quality programs with such high quality outcomes.
Right. No, completely agree with you. And also, if I look at it from the lens of lot of other portfolio companies, startups that we are investing in, for all of them, after first round of capital, first priority is building out their team, and that never stops. You have to keep hiring at different levels. And even though the startup ecosystem has become so much deeper over the last 10 years, talent availability is still a big challenge, and people hire for intrinsics that, hey, let me hire someone who's very smart, very hardworking, has the right ethos, and we'll teach them the skills. And what we have the potential at Mesa to change, and what you are already changing, is saying that you are not only getting intrinsics, but also a lot of these very, very relevant skills on day one when you hire people. And that I can also see in from our first couple of cohorts. From our first cohort, few graduates have joined our portfolio company, and I can also see from their perspective the kind of value they are able to add, and they can hit the ground running from day one. So that is clearly a big sort of need in the ecosystem.
No, I think our mission remains the same. You know, in our PG program as well as in our new UG program, we want to create this new wave of young leaders who will build the new amazing companies, right? Either as founders themselves or as amazing leaders inside amazing companies. That's what Stanford also did, right? Stanford is known for its entrepreneurial alumni. Some of the best startups or companies now in the world are from Stanford alumni. Google, HP, you know, Elon Musk is a Stanford alumni. I think there are multiple examples, right, where alumni from Stanford have go on to build amazing companies, enduring companies, and these are some of the biggest names we know. There are maybe a million more, uh, in addition to these, and that is our mission as well. I think we believe India has the talent or the potential in talent that we need for something like this to happen. It's our job now to find a way to channelize that energy and provide them with the right structure, the right resources, the right pathway to unlock that potential, to create those the next 1,000 unicorns from India.
So one of the other things I thought was very interesting that you did in early days was raise money from a VC like us, and you also brought on board a lot of founders, senior operators as angels, and also as advisors and faculty in Mesa. How has that played out? Because they are not the traditional teachers or mentors that one would expect. So how has that journey been?
No, I think we were very clear that it's going to be, we are building something for the ecosystem, right? So it's not going to be possible to build a movement like this without the support of the ecosystem. So when we went out, obviously Elevation Capital was an amazing partner, and there are several benefits of that. But getting a lot of founders and operators also bought into our mission and story has tremendous benefits, right? One, we get their advice. We get to brainstorm ideas with them on what we are doing. Is our focus correct? Is our approach correct? So I think it just keeps us honest, right? Because they are the ones who have gone through this journey themselves. They are the ones who work with great talent day in and day out. So their advice is almost like looking into a mirror, right? Second, I think what also helps is it feeds into our program almost on a day-to-day basis, right? So a lot of our facilitators, educators are actually startup leaders themselves. More than half of our program is delivered by startup leaders and founders, because there are so many new industries, so many new business models, so many new skills, functions that they know. I mean, some of them are less than 2 years old or 3 years old, right? In terms of industries or business model, or quick commerce is 3 years old as an industry. And within that industry, now there are 10, 15 different job functions which are now using 20, 30 new tools which did not exist 3 years ago. Now, if you want our young professionals to be prepared for that, then there is nobody else available except the leaders from that industry and function to come and talk about it, challenge our students on some of the real life problem statements, case studies. So that's one huge benefit of having access to that mentor pool, advisor pool. Second, these individuals also serve as our evangelists, our supporters, right? So our impact is, or our reach is not limited to these advisors, right? So they in turn help us evangelize to their broader network. And so there is a bit of a ripple effect, right? So, and the way it translates is our students then get access to problem statements, case studies, internships, projects, to an extended network of amazing startups, founders, and operators. Students are able to get connected to, for networking, for mentorship, for advice, to all of these startups, founders, and leaders. And I think one thing I've realized is all of these individuals are amazingly helpful. They want to give back, they want to play their part in building the next wave of this talent revolution, right? In this startup revolution themselves, because they were also helped by other people. So I think it's now their chance to give back. And that's something, again, I'm very amazed by how well it works in Western economies, where, great institutions like Stanford, HPS, where I went to, have this amazing culture of giving back, right? Where alumni help, or people who are slightly older help the younger people without any expectation, right? This is something which we have been able to create in the startup ecosystem through this network. And it's amazing to see that already playing out. We also have a startup lab where students get to work on their own startup ideas, right? And that's where getting access to no bullshit advice feedback and guidance from these founders and operators is amazingly helpful. So all of our startup teams, student startup teams, get matched to three types of mentors, right? One is me and the team. So I am the in-house incubator for Mesa, supported by a team. For example, we have somebody who is ex-Omidyar, so he used to work very closely with hundreds of startups. We have somebody who is a founder themselves. They were on Shark Tank, got funding. So we have a very solid team who works on the startup lab with these student teams day in, day out. But then they are also able to match them to external experts. So they will get matched to a founder expert, founder mentor, who is just going to be a mentor in their journey, how to think about early stages. But then they also get matched to a industry mentor. So let's say if somebody is working on an idea in a very complex industry like railway logistics. So while the first mentor can help them navigate 0 to 1 founder challenges, the other industry mentor can help them navigate the actual industry nuances. So as a result, these startup teams have the best chance of building something, testing it out, and becoming successful. And this is all becoming possible because of this extended network. So I'll give you a very specific example, right? So one of the student teams from our founding cohort, Tanay and Jash, they ended up launching a QSR restaurant chain for Vada Pav and Pav Bhaji. So their vision is to build Domino's of Pav Bhaji. They think that Pav Bhaji is the last most commonly eaten fast food which doesn't have a standardized brand. There is pizza, there is biryani, there is noodles and momos, there are samosas now, chai, coffee, but everybody in India eats Pav Bhaji as well, right? So why not create something for Pav Bhaji? So they actually got a chance to build their idea from ground up inside Mesa Startup Lab. And they got access to amazing mentors. So there was somebody who actually launched cloud kitchens while at Swiggy, who became their mentor from this network. Then there was a 0 to 1 founder mentor from this network. Then, the in-house team also helped. Then periodically, when they were raising funds, they recently raised funds also, $500,000 after the initial success. They had specific mentors to help them design the fund structure. How do you create cash flows? How do you negotiate with VCs? So I think amazing amount of help pours in from this network. And this is only possible because we've been able to create this ecosystem of mentors, advisors, supporters, and now cheerleaders, so to speak, who want this mission to succeed. And I think, Mukul, you've been an integral part of this mission, right? Whenever we need advice, whenever we need help, we come to you. So obviously within that roster of cheerleaders, it's you leading the pack, right? But I think pivoting away from that a little bit, we ourselves are getting a lot of requests on LinkedIn, on email from young professionals or young individuals, 17 years old, 18 years old, who are trying to build something, who are excited about building something, asking for advice, asking for guidance on how do I take this to the next stage, right? Some of them have great ideas as well. And I'm sure you guys are also, getting all of those requests. So if you have to, let's say, from all of your experiences so far, working with so many founders, yourself and entrepreneurs, if you had to address today's 17, 18-year-old, youngsters who are excited about building something, what would you tell them? What advice would you give them?
Sure. See, I would say a few things. One, if we look at any of us, we are sum total of 3, 4, 5 people we are closest to. And if you have the aspiration of building a business, if you want to be an entrepreneur, you have to surround yourself with people who are very ambitious, and you have to be in the right ecosystem. And in India, in my mind, that's clearly in Bangalore. If you look at, you spoke about Stanford also, and if you look at the US, Silicon Valley still produces most of the large companies in the US and in the world. And in India, Bangalore is starting to take up that place. Personally, I moved from Gurgaon to Bangalore a few months back. And even though I used to be here twice a month, just being here on the ground has made such a big difference in being closer to the ecosystem. So that is definitely one in my mind. Second, if you want to be a builder, there is no better way to learn that versus building it yourself or building something yourself. So therefore, I would also encourage young students, young professionals to have a very high bias for action and actually take up a project and say, let me build it end to end. And let me not even use the word project. Look at it as a building a company, that, hey, can I build a D2C brand of my own? Can I build a SaaS product of my own? And like you said, these days, it's so easy to build that if you have a interesting insight, that is there a tool or a software which some people might use, you can build it over 2-3 days, you can start marketing it with a very low budget and start receiving feedback. So show that bias for action, start building, and while doing that, you will also start to appreciate what some real time challenges of building a business are. You might think, I have a great product, you start spending on marketing, but there are no takers, and then you listen to your customers and you try and understand what's going on, why are they not buying, you incorporate that feedback, you iterate. So there is no better learning than actually going through that journey and pain yourself and starting to see revenue come out at the end of it. So I would highly encourage them to try and build something of their own which starts generating revenue. So these are couple of things that I would highly recommend young students or professionals who want to be entrepreneurs to focus on.
No, but I think this is very true, right? There are so many people who reach out to us with ideas, right? And my first advice back to them is, what is stopping you from building a small product, right? Why are you still at an idea stage? If you have the hustle, if you have the energy and the passion to look for experts, reach out to them for advice, don't sit on your idea. Try to build something. Let's say if your idea is as simple as, I want to build the new furniture, let's say I want to build the new best in class IKEA for India, right? Then what is stopping you? Get 5-6 products, speak to a couple of suppliers, convince them to give you some pictures, create a website, have great pictures on that website, use a small budget to market those products with great pictures online, and speak to customers and see if they really want that product or not. What is the problem? Is it the type of the product? Is it the price of the product? Is it the quality of the product? Is it is it something else, right? Or are you targeting the wrong customer? And then you have a lot more learnings. And then either you will go deeper, you will get more conviction that I'm actually on the right track. I just need to iterate a little bit, on one of the dimensions. Or you might find out that, I'm not on the right track. I need to look at another space, right? And that's the fastest way to learn. That's the best way to learn. But I think what I've also realized, Mukul, is that we have done this before, right? We have seen this happen before. So for us, sometimes it looks simple. But I think people who have the right ambition and passion, they still need a guidance to how to do it, right? What's the best way, at least for the first time, for the first 1 or 2 times, right? How do you build a small product or an MVP? How do you test your ideas? How do you go out and speak to customers and validate your hypothesis? How do you set up a digital marketing campaign? How do you assess whether it's working or not? So I think there are still some building blocks that need to be, I would say, structured in a way where the right individuals can leverage them and really unlock that bias for action and can really start building something. But there is no substitution, honestly, for trying to build something.
Yeah. No, actually, to build on that, I would add a couple of things. One, I completely agree with you that a lot of these skills, if there is a structured way of learning them, you can avoid a lot of obvious mistakes which people have made in the past. So there I completely agree with you. Second, at the same time, when you are a young founder and one is bottoms up skills and tools. Second is top down inspiration to say, how do you go about building a large business? And like you said, even for building a large business, day one, you have to break it to the smallest atomic unit and start testing that out.
But I think, are there other skills, Mukul, that you would encourage young individuals to build today so that they have a better shot at becoming either great founders or great leaders inside great startups?
Right. So see, few things I would highlight. I would say one of them is a skill, and second, in my mind, is a very core tenet on how you think about building a business. So on that first skill part, your ability to sell, convince, inspire people is very, very important. And in a founder's journey where there is so much to be built. You have to inspire people with your vision, whether you are hiring, whether you are looking for a customer, whether you are looking to raise capital. So therefore that ability to sell, ability to communicate your passion, in my view, is very, very important. And there also people realize that everyone has a different style. So finding your unique style and then honing it is something which is very, very important. So that's the skill part. Having said that, there are two very, very foundational elements that I have seen which really differentiate between founders who build good companies and founders who build great generation defining companies. One of them is being customer backwards and being very, very obsessed about your customers. So for them, their mission for building that business is to improve lives of their customers. Right. It's not to build wealth or create value, and therefore every decision starts from there. In fact, in one of our portfolio companies, Meesho, one of their values is listen or die. And when they mean listen or die, it means listen to your customers, be in touch with your customers, or you will die. So they put it in that level of black and white just to make sure every employee understands how important it is to be customer backwards. And what that leads to is sometimes very simple insights, which will become the foundation of your business. So that is one. Second, I won't call it a skill. I would say, again, a very fundamental tenet, which is very important for founders, is resilience. Because building a company is about facing failures again and again, learning from them, and then jumping back and fighting again the next day. So how do you have that resilience? And oftentimes, again, I've seen that it's the second, third, fourth iteration when suddenly founders are able to hit what we call product market fit, get traction, but 99% founders give up before that. So how do you build that resilience? So these are few things I would highlight, which are very, very important for someone to build a large enduring company.
No, I think very well said. And I think resilience is not just about, in my mind, big failures, right? It's about motivating yourself to give your best, to do what's right, to keep inspiring others, and be that source of energy for everybody around you when you don't have short-term wins. So, when you are building a long-term business, it's not as if you will achieve big milestones every day. It's unlikely, right? But every day you will have to work very hard. You will also have things not go in your favor. You will face failures in experiments that you are running. I think you will face failures, right? Some of them will be big, some of them will be small, but you will have more failures than wins. I think just from an averages of law perspective. So I think resilience is also about keeping your head up and going through that journey every day till you maximize your chances through the right iteration by listening to your customers' insights, by energizing everybody around you to focus on what's important, and then you hit that success milestone. And I think one thing that I've realized is that most of our educational programs in the country actually don't expose our young people to that. It's a very comfortable program. It's a program where you're not challenged to go out of your comfort zone. And when you are not going out of your comfort zone, when you're not asking students to attempt something which is beyond their reach, you don't do two things. One, you don't unlock their true potential because you don't know what you're capable of doing till you try it, right? And second, they never get a chance to taste failure. Because if you try something audacious, you are bound to fail till you become better. It's like building muscle, right? You will never be able to build 100, you'll never be able to lift 10 kg, 20 kg, 30 kg on day one. You start with 1 kg, 2 kg, 5 kg, but you have to try. And I think that's where our approach and our thinking is very different. We want to create a program, we want to create an environment where these young individuals get challenged. And there are multiple ways of doing that. One of the ways is by throwing them in the deep end, asking them to go and sell something to customers, asking them to build a product to convince customers to use, asking them to build something real, could be a small startup, and try to get real money in revenue, right? And a lot of them will fail across majority of that. But that is what is required, right? You learn more from your failures than from when things go right. And that is what we want to create.
No, you're absolutely right. And if I look at traditional education system, like you said, one, not just failure is not encouraged, it's strongly discouraged. Right, at every stage there is an exam and then you have to keep doing well, versus experimenting. So there is no experimentation, and similarly there is no sort of concept of iteration and feedback loops. Everything is so definitive. There is a course program, there is a curriculum, you go through each of the topics step by step, write your exam, move to the next step, which is exactly the opposite of what real world is, and which is exactly the opposite of what building a business is like. So I completely agree with you. It couldn't be farther from what is needed if you want to be a founder and build a business.
No, absolutely, absolutely. And I know you and the entire Elevation team is super excited about working with the entrepreneurs of tomorrow. And I think a lot of young entrepreneurs are also emerging from Mesa's community, right? And with this new UG program in business management and entrepreneurship, we expect a lot more young entrepreneurs to come. How are you guys thinking about supporting them, working closely with them to accelerate their both learning journey and actually building journey?
So, if I look at it from our perspective, we really, really want Mesa to succeed for multiple reasons. One, obviously, as a standalone company, as Mesa becomes big, as Mesa becomes successful, that will be great for students, for the company, for our investment. But more importantly, if Mesa becomes successful and there are thousands of leaders, thousands of professionals who are coming into the startup ecosystem much better prepared, or there are many founders. You spoke about the startup which has come out of Mesa. That is so inspiring to hear. If there are so many more startups which come out right from school, that would be an amazing place to be. So therefore, we are fully committed to making sure that Mesa becomes a big, big success. Now, at Elevation, what we bring is not just our 30-member investment team. We have a lot of functional experts within our firm, whether it is marketing, whether it is technology, finance, etc. At the same time, like you mentioned, we have a very large number of portfolio companies. And whether it is founders in those portfolio companies or their senior leaders, all of them want to pay it forward. All of them want to give back. So that's the ecosystem we bring along with us. And I believe that can help students right across their journey, whether it is in learning and mentorship, whether it is in getting real life experience when they want to do internships, when they want to see what work in a startup actually looks like, what real life projects actually look like, whether it is when they decide to start up. I would love to have those companies funded by Elevation. And it's not just us. We also have lot of micro VCs or angels in our network. So how can we ensure more and more of them are able to raise capital through Elevation or through our networks? And lastly, many such young professionals might decide that, hey, I don't want to start up on day one. I want to work in a startup. And therefore, can we enable many more of them to join our portfolio companies or join Elevation? So we can help across the life cycle in a fairly high impact way.
No, I think we have already seen a lot of that play out in our PG program, right? And whenever students want to start something, given that your team has evaluated several sectors, themes very deeply, have deep connects with experts within those sectors and themes, it actually is very helpful for students and us to bounce those ideas off very, very quickly to understand if this is even making sense. Are we on the right track? And obviously internships, projects, and actual full-time jobs within the portfolio is a very real possibility. It has already happened with our first cohort. It's already happening with our second cohort in terms of internships and projects. We also, are putting together a demo day for our startup lab this year in the next 2 months. And I think for UG program, given that it's focused on entrepreneurship and business management, we'll actually have a demo day every year where we'll obviously Elevation Capital will be anchoring it. And then we'll have that, network of startup founders, operators, micro VCs, angel investors to come and not just invest, right? But also to give very, very valuable feedback to the teams which are working on their own startup ideas. And I think it's not as if you can get funding immediately, right? It's about getting the right feedback. It's about understanding what are investors looking for. Are you on the right track? Are you focusing on the right customer base? Are you focusing on the right value pool? A bunch of things, right? So I think we are pretty excited about the fact that in this journey, somebody like Elevation Capital and you are partners with us, because it's a mission, right? It's not something that can happen in one day or very fast. It requires people to be very aligned on why that mission is important. And just again, operate with that resilience to keep making it happen every day, every month, every year, and be excited about the impact it creates in students and young professionals who go through that door, start their own businesses, attempt to start their own businesses, and create impact in other startups as well.
Right.
No, thank you so much for that.
No,
Mukul.
super excited to be a part of this mission. Also, Ankit, you touched upon this undergraduate program, which is a new initiative that we are starting. So there, and you also mentioned you've been receiving a lot of inbound from 17, 18-year-olds who want to be founders, entrepreneurs, or who want to work in the startup ecosystem. So how are you thinking about this program? Who you think is the right sort of TG for this program? How are you designing this program? Would love to get your thoughts there as well.
We want to cut the fluff, right? We get so many requests for guidance and advice, and I think the energy in young India about entrepreneurship and building something is just palpable, right? Everybody who is smart and ambitious right now, they want to build something. They think that's the best way for them to learn. That's the best way for them to create value, and that's the best way for them to even unlock their true potential and ambitions, right? So the best people or the smartest people that I know and I've interacted with are all excited about. They're tinkering with ideas, they're tinkering with approaches, they are not shy to ask for help. But I think what we've also realized is that there is no structured, like if you were to go out and start looking for programs to help you learn about entrepreneurship while learning a lot of foundation of business management, there is no such program out there, right? So we actually want to cut the fluff and say that we will build something new, right? Based on our experiences so far, as a student ourselves, as a founder ourselves, as an employee or as a team member in other startups, and from our network of advisors and coming from founders and operators, on what does it take to learn about entrepreneurship and business management in a very structured step-by-step manner. Now, who is this program going to be for? I think this program is designed for individuals who are not afraid to try, who are confident, who want to take a bet on themselves, who want to try to build something, who think they are meant for bigger things, but don't have the right tools or resources or guidance to get there, who believe that if given the right environment, the right peer group, they can build something amazing, who thinks they have a great idea already, or who is looking for the right idea or the right co-founder. I think these are some of the traits that we are looking for. These are individuals who will become founders at some point of time. They may start their journey with other founders, but they will become founders. They have that, what we call as the kida in them, right? They have that bug of entrepreneurship or becoming a founder, and they are not willing to they are not afraid to get their hands dirty. And this is what this program is about, right? This program is about making it real, building something real, learning a lot of foundation, but applying that in real life to prepare yourself for life of startups as founders or as operators. And the way we have designed the program is completely new, because there is no such program which exists. So we had to completely reimagine the program. Obviously, we want to cover all the foundations, business management essentials, which are covered by the leading academicians out there, startup leaders out there, which will not just build the right business foundation, but also expose you to the right tools, techniques, functions, business models, industries which are emerging, right? Then I think what we also believe very strongly is that you need to keep learning by doing while you are learning inside the class. So you will actually have to do a couple of internships in this program where you work very closely with founders or startup operators or leaders in their founder's office, take care and help them take on challenges which they face on day to day. And that's the best way for you to learn and apply what you are learning inside the class and get exposed to the real world. Third, we want you to build real businesses. So even if your ambition is not to build a business immediately after Mesa, we want everybody to try to build something. And we will ask everybody to build a business every year. So it could be a D2C business, it could be an AI business, a SaaS business, it could be a YouTube channel where you have to make money. You can pick your own idea as well as part of our startup lab. And the reason for that is when you try to build something and sell it to real people for real money, that's the best teacher, right? Everything is fluff till you ask for money. And as soon as you ask for money, it becomes real. And then you have to ask the hard questions. You have to ask the hard questions. You have to ask the right questions. Who is the customer? Why is this the right customer? What is their problem? How am I solving it in a 10x better way? What is the price I'm asking? Is that the right price? How will they pay me? Why will they pay me this much? Right? Will they come back? Right? All of this becomes real as soon as you try to ask for money from real people. That is why we want people to build business. And it's going to be very structured. They will get access to all the resources inside the startup lab, which in terms of, there's a very strong in-house team of past operators and investors who work with students to find the right idea. Then they match them with external mentors based on their industry, sector, the stage of the business that they are on, and also functional experts. So let's say if somebody wants to try a new business model, so they will be matched to the expert or mentor in that business model, right? Fourth, obviously, is for example, both Varun and I went to US for our MBA, and I think global exposure is just amazing. There is so much happening outside of India that we can learn from. That is why we have made global exposure a necessary part of our undergrad program. So every student in their first year spends a couple of months in Silicon Valley. We think if you want to be excited about startups, there is no better way to excite you, right? And then you can also choose to do more global immersions in UK, Australia, Singapore every year if you want to do that. We also want to make sure that our students are prepared for skills that are required to be a couple of years later, right? While we are building a very strong foundation of some of these competencies and traits, like you mentioned, right? Yeah. Customer backwards, resilience, sales mentality, building a business. We also want to make sure that they have the right hard skills. So they get exposed. They have to learn a lot about AI, tech tools, make sure that they get a chance to build products. Not as if they have to build products their life, but you need to know how to build products, right? And then sixth, I think, and without which any undergrad experience is incomplete, is what you do outside of the program, right? It's about building that personality. It's about building that confidence. It's about building friends, relationships. So we have a very amazing lineup of activities which students can engage in to build that 360-degree personality. It could be trek to Everest Base Camp, where you have to figure out how to work in team and support each other. How do you overcome physical difficulties? Be it about running the largest debating competition in the country, be it about planning and hosting the largest startup fest in the country by an undergrad college, be it about creating a dramatic society, other clubs and activities as well. I think put together, we believe this UG program in business management and entrepreneurship is a very, very fresh take on what will it take for an ambitious and a hardworking young professional to unlock their true potential and become ready with the right skills for a life in startups, either as a founder or working with a founder very, very closely.
Yeah. I love the way you've described the program, and again, putting hat of a startup founder who's looking to hire, I can see the kind of value this talent would add. Specifically, two things. One, which you mentioned, which is learning by doing and not doing projects, which we mentioned earlier, but focusing on generating real revenue. That will provide the biggest challenges and the biggest ability to learn as well. And second, you touched upon AI. And we are going through this phase where everyone believes AI is going to fundamentally change businesses. It is going to fundamentally change the skills we need and how work will be done. And therefore, I think as a program, we'll also have to be nimble because it is evolving so fast. How do we ingrain it and integrate it more and more deeply into our program so that 4 years out, the people who are graduating from Mesa are most prepared in a world which might look very different from what it is today because of AI. So I love your focus on both of these, learning by building and integrating AI deeply into our programs.
No, I think as a new age institution, we are also agile enough, right? We are nimble enough to change very fast, right? We are not constrained by doing what was done. We can always remain focused and move very fast to make sure that we are aligned with what's happening outside. I mean, we are personally very, very excited about this next chapter. We have already started receiving applications for this program. In fact, yesterday we received a couple of applications from people who have applied to Shark Tank as well, and in fact pitched on Shark Tank a couple of days ago. So I think the quality of applicants is already very high, which is reflecting in what I said earlier, right? All the young, ambitious and aspirational individuals in India right now are looking to build something. And we think that this is the right program where we get a chance to work very closely with them for the next 4 years. We are very excited about that. I think it gives us immense joy and meaning to work with very, very aspirational young individuals. We are excited about the next chapter. We are excited about the mission that we are jointly on, Mukul, to build Stanford of India. And let's see.
Yeah, no, equally excited and look forward to building the most impactful program for students who want to build companies, who want to be in startups, and hopefully build the best program in the world. So really excited to be partners with you on this journey.
Great. Thanks, Mukul, for being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me. Enjoyed the chat.
Likewise.